Hoenn's most prominent feature is probably the 85% water content surrounding the entire region, but it's the locations within this land surrounded by sea that make up Generation 3's main area. Some locations stand out more than others though, either from being mysterious or just being strangely weird. Hey there, I'm Kamikaize, and today we're going to be looking at 13 of the weirdest places in the Hoenn region. Now to clarify, weird doesn't just mean a strange looking rock in the middle of the ocean with nothing but Magikarp surrounding it. Some places are actually surrounded with a lot of interesting uncertainty and thus can classify as having a weird and ominous presence, like a cave where you can catch the box legendaries, or even nothing but Zubat. Some of these locations might seem rather generic on paper, but when you take a deep dive in, they're actually a lot more intricate than one might think. These locations aren't in any particular order, so I'm just going to be naming them off based on the ones that I found the most interesting. With that out of the way, let's dive right in. We'll start this list off with something a little bit whimsical. Secret bases are one of the staples of both Hoenn games, but I can't be the only one that was confused as a kid, wondering how a pre-dug tunnel appeared in this little tiny cave, or how a bush has a whole wooden floorboard hiding within it. And how in the world does this tiny little tree have the capacity to store all of my Regidolls? It's definitely a weird occurrence, but in a world where my pets can fight with other animals, I probably shouldn't question this logic. Equally weird though is the 12th location on this list, only accessible in Pokemon Emerald, Altering Cave. Now, I covered Altering Cave in a different video and you can go watch that up here if you'd like, so I won't really touch up too much with this place. But if you didn't watch that video yet, and I assure you stick around for this one, the breakdown is simple. Altering Cave is a location in Pokemon Fire Red, Leaf Green, and Emerald that would allow the player to catch rare Johto Pokemon in the postgame. But because this never actually was possible, the only Pokemon the player can find normally is Zubat, which is not in any way rare or unique. If you played the game and came across this place without knowing, you probably thought it was really weird to see a cave filled with a bunch of bloodsuckers, without a doubt. Following up Altering Cave is one of my absolute favorite locations in the Hoenn region, the Mirage Tower. In Pokemon Emerald, you get the chance to get both the Root and the Claw fossil in comparison to Ruby and Sapphire where you only get to choose one. But until the post-game in Pokemon Emerald, you have to choose one fossil or the other, and to do so you must visit the elusive Mirage Tower, which will appear and reappear as the player leaves the route it's located on. Once the fossil is taken, the tower crumbles away into dust as if it never existed before in the first place. Perhaps it is just a mirage after all, considering you can't go back once it's actually gone. If you continue on your journey after Mirage Tower, you'll eventually come across Meteor Falls. This location only gets more interesting with Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire's release. Now, even without the hidden details, Meteor Falls is an incredibly beautiful and eerily mysterious place when first encountered. Their respective evil teams obviously know this as well, since the meteor is found and stolen here. However, this location was once where an ancient tribe of people in the Hoenn region once settled, and in the remakes it is revealed that these are the Draconid people. The lore of the Draconids is definitely far more extensive, and considering the falls are actually a shelter of sorts for them, it makes you wonder how sacred these grounds really are. Shoal Cave is an interesting location, in that it would utilize the time mechanic in the original Game Boy Advance copies of Ruby and Sapphire to change tides and make special items and rare Pokemon accessible to the player. The same function is present in the sequels, but without the dead battery hindering this event from actually happening. Shoal Cave on the surface isn't quite weird or mysterious, but the amount of unique things that inhabit this cave, including shoal salt and shoal shells, which allow the player to make a shell bell, which is an equivalent item to the leftovers, makes it worth checking out and exploring each individual crevice of this cavern if one desires. One of the most unusual places in my opinion that really made me scratch my head as a kid was the Artisan Cave within the Battle Frontier. It's like Altering Cave Deluxe version, except now you can find nothing but Smeargle and a bunch of spare vitamin supplements that somebody left lying around. I get why this was added for sure, allowing the player to actually have the chance to get Smeargle, but it also just feels, well, so unconventionally out of place here on the island. Then again, it makes it for an easy shortcut to get to the center of the operation, and since it is the only way that you can actually get Smeargle in Generation 3, it all sort of makes sense. Another odd location is the Scorched Slab. I made a community post about this a while back to see if any of you knew, and it seems that based on the reaction, only a couple of people really remembered this weird place. The fact that it's just there, tantalizing you, only to have a TM for Sunny Day is, well, underwhelming to say the least. Though in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, interestingly enough, you can actually catch Heatran of all things in this cave, so I guess it's a nice little upgrade to this previously rather boring and straightforward location. However, this cave actually is supposed to be based on a real-life location that would be within the lifelike equivalent of Hoenn, that being the Ama no Iwado, I probably butchered that, in Japan, in which the sun goddess Amaterasu shut herself away according to Japanese mythology. This is why you can find the TM11 within the cave. But does that mean that Heatran is actually the goddess of the sun? It really makes you think. One of the most notorious places within Hoenn is without a doubt the infamous Mirage Island that is just shy of Pacific Logtown. There's an old man who, by the miracle of Arceus, still has incredible vision and is able to spot this very elusive landmass that will appear randomly on Route 130 when certain conditions are met in the game's coding. With a dried out battery, it's impossible to reach this place, but if you do manage to actually get here, you're treated to an island full of nothing but Wynot, of all Pokemon, and you can get the rarest berry in the game that is unobtainable by normal gameplay, which is the Lychee Berry. Though it isn't a super spectacular location to visit, it can be compared to playing the lottery, and once you win, it's fairly rewarding to know you actually stepped foot on Mirage Island's soil. New Mauville has always been an interesting location to me, but now I wonder if there's actually more to it than just being a side quest once you get Surf. The map description for New Mauville says that it was originally planned to be a 69, nice, floor underground development, but it was later abandoned during development. What was the reasoning for this? Was there some sort of dystopian outcome or preparatory effects that need to be taken by the people of Mauville City? Was Watson crazy enough to try something silly with his gym challenges and potentially cause a blackout? Or maybe he just wanted
more power, baby! Yeah! Do it, me! More power, baby! Everybody! More power, baby!
Who knows? Taking Mauville Underground definitely gives me a bit of a dystopian vibe like the Hunger Games or something to that caliber, but maybe I'm just overanalyzing it. Speaking of New Mauville, let's take a trip to the seas and talk about Sea Mauville, or Abandoned Ship rather. In Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, Abandoned Ship is long gone, but the two are sort of similar in terms of lore. Both seem to be research vessels where Captain Stern, among others, were attempting to collect information on the ocean's natural resources. But of course, something went all wrong and the ship and/or vessel fell abandoned. It seems far more grimacing in the remakes, but even thinking about Abandoned Ship potentially being wrecked and left to rot can really make you think about how truly eerie these two relics are. Although the two are slightly diversified on that part, they are both in the same areas, and both originally had more of a purpose than just being dead in water. Examining old documents, images, and items in either place really gives you that weird feeling of how these places were once full of life and prosperity, but are now just husks of their former selves. The Cave of Origin and Mount Pyre are two sides of the same coin. One is where life begins, and one is where life ends. Mount Pyre is more of a memorial location, and reminiscent of that of the Pokemon Tower in Lavender Town, but the Cave of Origin is far more intricate in that regard. It's heavily guarded and not open to the citizens of Setopolis, or the rest of the Hoenn region for that matter, as only higher authorities are permitted inside, and that's probably because it's where the player can find Groudon or Kyogre depending on the version they're playing. This cave has incredible powers that surpass the average route cave, considering the energy emitted is powerful enough to shut down a Pokénav, and in the remakes of the games it's where the primal forms are found and thriving due to these occurrences. Mount Pyre is again far more straightforward, but seeing how it is where the two orbs that summon the two legendaries are housed, it too has some sort of enigmatic relation to the Cave of Origin and a far deeper power than what appears on the surface. By far one of the most ominous locations in the game in my opinion is the Sealed Chamber. This is where the player can make it possible to encounter the three legendary titans in their game by interacting with an extremely old relic within the cave's walls. Getting to this point, as well as actually getting into the cavern that allows this to occur, is very mysterious. The player needs to have a Relicanth and Wailord of all Pokemon in order for the encounter to be possible, and there must be a Pokemon that can use Dig to open up these catacombs. This all probably seems weird and seemingly silly on the surface, but just like almost everything else on this list, there is indeed a reasoning behind it. All of the translated Braille indicates the truth behind this cave. Relicanth and Wailord aren't just random Pokemon that were selected. It's seemingly believed that Relicanth is tied to land, as the creature that it's based on is a close relative of all land-inhabiting invertebrates, and Wailord is tied to the sea, which whale ancestors once inhabited land but then moved to the ocean, so it's pretty much the exact opposite. The general theme of Ruby and Sapphire is land and sea, which then all ties it together in a neat little package. This cave also gives allusion to the Regi trio and their connection to Regigigas, although not present at the time that this game was released. It's a mysterious location and anything is possible. By far though, the weirdest location in Hoenn has to be Lynette's house. I mean, really, can you actually get away with all this clutter, Lynette? You're not fooling anyone. What's hiding in all those boxes and books, huh? I'm on to you. I'm always watching. Always. Sorry, I lied. There were only 12 weird places, unless you actually agree that Lynette's hiding something very dark and secretive in that house of hers. But what do you think about this list? Do you agree? Do you have any other places that you think are equally strange or mysterious? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. If you did enjoy the video, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe with the bell icon enabled to join the Glaceon gang today. Thanks for all your support as usual, and for waiting patiently as these new videos make their way out. That's all for this episode. Until next time, I'm Kamikaize, but you can call me Kai. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.